Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new day. Of course, every day, I feel like this is a little bit of a Mr. Rogers style introduction. I don't know, it just kind of strikes me that way. But every day is a gift, right? Every day is an opportunity to thank the Lord for another new day. But this theme, if you will, of a new day has really been on my mind a lot. And in particular, I wanted to take one of these uh, chair thoughts videos, as I've come to call them by shorthand, as uh, as an opportunity to reflect on this idea. Because when I was thinking about my next one of these videos, I'm going to try to continue to offer them about once a week, and try to continue to offer coffee with parishioners once a week for a while. And minute prayers, I think, will be at least once a week. I'll elaborate on that later. And I have one more episode of the story that I started for the kids, but of course, kids of all ages can enjoy it. Children of God of all ages can enjoy it. But anyway, but as far as these videos, as I was thinking about one for this week, the thought occurred to me, wait, what day should I label it? I don't know if you've ever noticed in the description, each video has a title, but then the subtitle is always Thoughts from the Ugly Green Chair, Day Whatever. So for example, the last one was Day 88. Now, ironically, I don't know if that's the right word, but interestingly, Day 88 was the final day. Why do I say that? Because those days were counting from the suspension of public mass. They weren't counting from shelter in place. Shelter in place hadn't started, and shelter in place has expired for us. They weren't counting from, anything specifically having to do with any date specifically having to do with the pandemic. They counted the days of the suspension of public mass. Well, the very next day after day 88, when I posted the last of these videos, we were able to have our first public mass indoors. So the mass suspension had at that point for us ended. It ended for the diocese for any parish who had completed their checklist of safety guidelines just a few days before that. So we started only a few days sort of late, although late isn't the right word, because the bishop really asked us to be careful and diligent about opening up when we're ready, right? When we're prepared. So anyway, so as I realized, if we're counting the days of the mass suspension is over. And so thanks be to God. So this is a new day. But of course, as I acknowledged in the homily over the weekend, the concerns about the pandemic and the concerns that are keeping many people in their homes more, and keeping many people from going out as much, and perhaps with good reason. They're still very present with us, and especially those who are not going to be able to rejoin us, even with the safety guidelines that we have in place, the new norms that we have, which are pretty extensive. Many people are not ready to make that step yet, and that is perfectly okay. Everybody has the freedom to make that choice as they feel is appropriate for them. And so it's interesting that we recognize that it's a new day, a new phase has begun, and we can thank the Lord for that newness, right? But we should acknowledge that even with that newness, that we still have a cross to carry, right? We still have burdens, we still have difficulties, we still have adversity and challenges. And so we continue to be mindful of one another. We continue to be diligent about looking to the Lord, and allowing Him to be our courage, our hope, and our strength. And we recognize that this newness of this new phase that He has given us reminds us of the grace that always makes all things new. You know, as I talked about last time, this is kind of one of my it's kind of one of my pet themes, if you will, for this year. For this time of year, maybe I didn't acknowledge this in the last video. When I was in college ministry, some of my more bold students they shared with me the custom of the preacher's bingo card. I don't think it's something they actually do, at least during Mass, please God. But it was sort of a running joke that every preacher, you could write a set of bingo cards for them, that as you listen to them preach, right, when they use this phrase, you cover it and then, oh, bingo, and I definitely, every preacher has their own sort of phrases and themes that they come back to a lot, and I definitely have my bingo card. But one of the things that's on my bingo card this time of year is the reality of our ordinary days are made new. As we return to ordinary time after the Easter season, we should embrace and celebrate this newness in our life, that our ordinary days are made new by the resurrection. We don't just go about life as usual, right? But we embrace that newness. We embrace whatever the Lord is calling us to change. We embrace the way in which the Lord makes new the grace we have to persevere today after the struggles and perhaps failures of yesterday, right? That we embrace that newness. We live that newness with courage, with gratitude, and with joy. And we know, as I said, that it's still going to have with it challenges. And admittedly, that it's not always going to be glamorous. One thing that was on my mind after this past weekend of having had the first round of public masses indoors for the weekend, and a full schedule of public masses at that, a fuller schedule than we had before, because I added a mass to accommodate the smaller capacities. One thing that was on my mind is that, I think the first week or two of the mass suspension, I definitely sort of gave into, and you heard me express it, the sort of the tendency to want to think that, like, as soon as the mass suspension is over, we're all gonna pack into the church for a big glorious celebration, and the reality is that over time it became clear that was a little bit wishful thinking, that it wasn't going to happen that way. But it was also, as I talked about in a recent video about hope, sometimes our wishful thinking is a little bit kind of manipulative in the way that we wish for the way we think things should be, when actually God has a better plan. If we had a view of our faith that focused on the big moments, the glamorous moments, the exciting moments, and focused on that as the newness and the freshness of our faith, as opposed to preserving a freshness that enables to carry our cross day by day, and to endure challenges and to endure adversity day by day. I think we would be missing something if we were always chasing after that next big glamorous moment. We need to embrace the fact that the Lord wants to make our ordinary days new. And so a lot of what we experienced this weekend was, in a sense, very simple, even in the sense that, with the concerns of the pandemic still in place, and kind of people getting used to the new regulations and everything, the crowds were smaller necessarily. Of course, they were going to be smaller anyway with the smaller capacity because of social distancing, and because the congregation is smaller, and as I keep saying, that part of the beauty of the body of Christ is that every member is essential, right? And so we miss certain people who are very dear to us in the congregation, and that includes people who sometimes sort of fill key roles. So some of the masses didn't have music, and so there was, we recognize that things aren't always going to be glamorous and glorious, but the glory is how the Lord is drawing us in to the mystery of his paschal mystery, his suffering, death, and resurrection in the ordinary day of our life, but also, most especially in the Mass, how the Lord wants to prayerfully draw us in to his paschal mystery so that we can unite our sufferings, unite our crosses to his cross, so that we can share in his resurrection. Friends, I believe that is what the new day is really all about. You know, it's something, and it's something that's been popping up in some of my own personal spiritual reading at this time too. You know, the beauty of the day of redemption. I know I preached about it over the weekend, but that the Lord began creation anew with Jesus Christ. He began a new creation. And yet, you know, historians might look, and certainly historians will always acknowledge the importance of the birth of Christianity and the life of Jesus of Nazareth to the progress of history afterwards. Jesus truly did change the course of history, right? Even from a secular perspective. But from a religious perspective, even more so, that the Lord, by giving us this gift of grace, by the gift of the incarnation, which allows us to have grace, which enables us to be in communion with the one who is fully God and fully man, our ordinary days can be made new. So let us, friends, embrace that gift as we embrace this new day. God bless.